when I believe it's Paul is listing out the conditions for a deacon or a bishop, and he says that he's supposed to be the husband of one wife and then lists out some other virtues. I have a friend who places a lot of importance on that as prescriptive and then uses that to kind of argue against priestly celibacy. So I was kind of wondering what the response to that would be so I can answer him a little better on that.
So it should be very clear that Paul is talking about a ceiling and not a floor. He's not saying you need at least one wife. He's saying you need at most one wife. And, you can't be a divorcee. Because under Jewish law, you could divorce your wife and remarry. And under pagan law, there was all sorts of stuff you could get away with. And a bishop shouldn't be doing anything like that. And so you don't want to have, here's the bishop's ex-wives. That's what Paul is talking about. How do we know he's not talking about how celibates aren't allowed to be bishops? Because Paul oversees the church and is a celibate himself and talks about this. In 1 Corinthians 7, he argues that it's a higher spiritual state than being married. And for that matter, if the Protestant read was correct, Jesus wouldn't be allowed to be a bishop because he doesn't have a wife or kids. And it seems very weird to have a rule that disqualifies Jesus from governing his own church. And so in Matthew 19, Jesus talks about the superiority of celibacy. So after he lays out his vision of marriage, which is that divorce and remarriage is sinful, the disciples are scandalized and shocked by this. And they say, well, if such is the case of a man with his wife, it is not expedient to marry. And Jesus doesn't disagree. He says in verse 11, this is Matthew 19, verse 11, not all men can receive this precept, but only those to whom it is given. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He who is able to receive this, let him receive it. So if Jesus has just said, if you can do it, if you can practice celibacy for the sake of the kingdom, you should, that is completely inconsistent with saying you have to not do that in order to be a bishop in the church. And so this is a case of just taking like one line completely and radically out of context and putting it against the whole of the rest of what the New Testament has to say about how marriage is. So you got three categories. You've got being aflame with lust, as St. Paul puts it. That's bad. You have marriage, that's good and God-given. You have celibacy, which is even higher than that. And so the distortion of this is a real shame because it means that in many Protestant circles, there's no place for holy celibates. So if you're someone who aspires to be in ministry or wants to lead in any way or share your gifts, there's an enormous pressure to get married based on this really distorted misreading of St. Paul.